Jumping right into this thing, we got some 8-quarter cherry for this desk build. I picked this stuff up about a week ago. Well, now, a couple weeks ago, but it sat in the shop for a little while before we got to it. This whole project I did kind of a few hours at a time here and there over the last couple weeks. And we start out with just milling everything up, getting everything nice and flat, straight edge on everything. These boards were 10 feet. I think one of them I had a 9-footer. And then we bring them to the table saw. And this is pretty important, making sure I get a nice rip on these for my glue up. And I do double rip them, so I use the jointed edge against the fence and rip off the opposite edge, and then I spin them around and rip off the jointed edge. I just don't like to use the jointed edge in my glue up. I would rather have the saw cut edge. So we milled it down. It started off at 2 inches thick, and then I milled it down to 1 3/4 inches. And then I'm using number 20 biscuits to glue this thing up, just to keep everything nice and in line. And cherry is really one of my favorites. It's really nice to work with. Machines really well. Sand's really nice. Cherry's just a really nice wood to work with. And it's gotten pretty cheap compared to what it used to be, and compared to other woods right now, like Rift White Oak and Walnut and stuff like that. Cherry is pretty inexpensive. I guess it's not as popular as it used to be, but I really like it. So we get this thing clamped up really nice and flat. And then bam, next day. And this thing was heavy, this top. I think it's about 32 inches deep, 10 feet long. So you can just imagine. It's pretty heavy. And my dust collector bags were overflowing at this point, and big piece like that going through the sander, you can see all the dust coming out the back. The dust collector definitely has a hard time with big stuff like that. And I spent a lot of time sanding this thing. So then I take it to the saw to break it down. This is going to be like a waterfall edge desk. So I cut them to rough length. Everything obviously is longer than it needs to be right now. And then I cut the miter. I like to cut the miter first and then cut it to length, just because that way if I mess up the miter cut, I have more meat there to slide it over and cut it again. And then I can, once I get a good miter cut, then I'll cut these pieces to their finished length. And I would do the same thing if I was like running trim or something like that. I would always cut the miter first and then cut my piece to length if it was square on one end. So now my pieces are cut, and I decided to use, yeah, that miter came out really nice. The slider is really great for cutting big miters like this. So I decided to use the Lamello Zeta P2 and put some Clamex connectors in here. I thought about using dominoes as well, which dominoes would work great here too. I just decided to go with these because I wouldn't have to clamp it really. I could just put these in and tighten them down and it would be done. And these things, each Clamex connector is over like 200 pounds of clamping pressure. And on that big miter, it just pulls this thing together really tight, and it came out crispy. And so the holes for the keyhole for the Clamex connectors, I put in the bottom of the top piece, so that way you'll never really see them unless you're laying on the floor, I guess. But that miter just came out really good. Grain wrap lined up pretty good. So pretty stoked with that. So I built that temporary leg there just so I could kind of set this thing up. And check it out. It was looking really nice. I was very pleased with how the glue up and the miter and everything is turning out so far. So the front edge of this, I wanted to put a nice chunky round over, put a 3/4 round over on it, because my desk right now, I know I've mentioned it before, is literally just a piece of plywood, and the front edge is sharp, and when I'm sitting there typing or doing computer work, it's just annoying. So I wanted that nice eased edge so it's just comfortable when I'm sitting here on the computer. Little hand sanding just to dial everything in. Dude, I've gotten asked so many times, what is that thing on your hat? The thing on my hat is a microphone. That's how I talk into the camera when I'm talking into the camera. It's just a microphone. And so this was a few days later, and I wanted to get some finish on this thing, so I was just doing some one final round of prep. I filled, there's a couple knots on the underside of this thing. I sealed up with some black CA glue. I didn't actually fill those. I just kind of got a coating in there just to kind of seal it all up. And then we give this thing a final sanding, just dial everything in, breaking edges on the back side. I buy at Home Depot those tack cloths, and those are great for wiping off the fine dust and stuff before finish. And then I mixed up some Rubio Pure, and I'm just spreading that on. I like these plastic taping knives to spread it, and then I just kind of let it set up for a little bit and buff it out. Now, I've only been using Rubio, really, I started using it this year. And typically I would always just like spray this thing with lacquer, and that's just kind of what I would always do. And then I started using the Rubio, and I really am liking it for stuff like this. Like it's just easy to work with. It's a nice finish. It doesn't smell like lacquer. It dries quick. It's just nice. Yeah, I don't have to set up my sprayer and all that. And then one coat and it's basically done. So definitely enjoying working with that. And then we move on to the cabinet. So the cabinet is going to go under this thing on the right side and have a bank of drawers. Originally, I was going to make it a paint grade cabinet and paint it black. And then I'm trying to use up leftover materials and stuff that I've had. And I had enough walnut plywood to make it, so I thought, what the heck, I'll just make it out of walnut. I think it will contrast pretty nice with the cherry. And then this thing was ready to flip over and get some Rubio on the top side. And the other thing with the Rubio, it's crazy like how little you need. It's definitely not the cheapest stuff, but a little bit really does go a long way. And the top is just really looking nice. I do the same thing to my cabinet parts before I put them together. Just pre-finish all of them with some Rubio. Alright, so now we can start assembling. This was a little while later, once everything was dry. So those 3-inch pieces on the bottom are spacers I'm laying out for biscuits. That's where my bottom piece will go, so it'll be 3 inches up from the floor. So I'm going to use Clamex connectors here. I don't want any exposed fasteners on the outside of the cabinet. And you could use pocket screws here on your top and bottom piece into the sides, but I chose to use the Lamello Clamex connectors and Rue glue because there's finish on this stuff, so the Rue glue will stick. So we clamp everything down and just get this thing put together. And this is going to be, there's no face frame, but I'm doing inset drawer fronts, so they'll be inside this frame, or inside this frameless cabinet, because it's still a frameless cabinet, but it's going to be inset. It'll all make sense here in a minute. And the Clamex connectors really are, I mean, they're awesome. And if you guys need anything Lamello, let me know. I'll hook you up with a rep directly through them, and they'll take care of you, take care of all your ordering and stuff like that. If you have any questions on Lamello machines, let me know. Happy to help out, happy to answer any questions. Lamello's been a great company. Their tools are amazing, and if you're building cabinets or finished carpentry or something like that, Lamello could really change the way you do things. And so I was pretty stoked at this point. Everything was looking really nice. Then a few days later, I could get to the drawer fronts and the drawers. So breaking down some more walnut ply for the drawer fronts. So we get those things cut and then get everything edge banded. This edge bander really makes quick work of this step. And then we do the same thing. Get them all sanded, and then we get some Rubio on everything. And man, look at, like, the walnut just looks amazing. Onto the drawers. So for the drawer boxes, I decided to just use poplar because I have a bunch of it. And so I get everything broken down. I break everything down into rough lengths, and then we'll go and joint and edge on everything, rip them to rough width, and then back to the joiner for flattening. So this drawer stack is getting 3 equal-sized drawers. Then to the planer, everything gets milled down to 5/8 to work with the undermount drawer slides, and then rip to final width. and then cut to their final length. Then we could put the 1/4 inch dado stack in. I just threw a 1/4 inch in, and we're gonna make the groove for the bottom. Now my bottoms are 1/2 inch walnut ply, which I thought would be pretty cool. So we slide the fence over, make sure my 1/2 inch bottoms will fit in that groove, and then finish them off. For the joinery on these drawer boxes, I'm just doing number 20 biscuits. So we will biscuit and glue and clamp everything up. That way we have no visible fasteners. And this will be a solid drawer box. I did pre-finish all the bottoms. I didn't put any finish on the poplar. I will put some Rubio on it before I bring this thing to the house, but I just wanted to get these together, and I was kind of running out of time. So the only thing that didn't have finish on it yet was the poplar. And then all the drawers were done. Now I wanted to get this drawer box or the cabinet box out from underneath so I could start putting in the drawer slides and getting the cabinet finished up. And for the drawer slides, I'm using some head itch slides that I've had left over for a couple years. So just using up those, and they're actually really nice slides. The adjustments on them are really great. They're soft close. For attaching the drawer fronts, I pre-drill holes and everything, then put some screws. You can see I've got the screw sticking out a little bit. I put my spacer and then get my drawer front where I want it to be, press it up against those screws, and it gives me a little hole. And I pre-drill it, make it a little bit bigger, and then I go ahead and attach it. And then for my spacers there, my gaps on this cabinet, I did about a 1/16. I wanted tight gaps on these, and my spacers there were 32nd of an inch. So I like to, when I'm putting my drawer fronts on, I like to start them out a little bit lower than they're actually going to be, because the locking device on the drawer slides always come at their lowest point. So then if they're lower, I can always raise them up, raise the drawer fronts up. If they end up being too high and the drawer front's already all the way low, you have to readjust your drawer front, if that makes sense. So once I got all those dialed, I moved on to waxing this thing. I do put wax over the Rubio. I know it says you're supposed to use their own product, but I've been using this Black Bison wax over it for basically since I've been using Rubio, once it's completely dry, and it works amazing. So I just basically wipe it on with some steel wool, let it dry for a little while, and then come back with a dry rag and buff it out. And man, this stuff feels like glass afterwards. It really feels super smooth, gives it a nice little sheen, and just looks like a really nice finish on it. I really like putting the wax on this stuff at the end. And this was heavy. This was tricky to get that thing up there by myself. But we got it. Hope you guys enjoyed this build. It is, man, these kind of projects are a lot of fun. I didn't put hardware on here yet, obviously still waiting for that to come in, but I'm gonna also wax the top, wax the cherry, but not until I get it into the house. It is gonna be in the shop for a few more days just because the room over at my house is not ready for it yet. But I also have grommets coming that I'll drill into this thing again at the house because my outlet's like over here, and I just want to make sure I put it in the right spot. So when I put this in the room, then I'll drill that hole. I have like 5 inches of space back here, so I'm just going to mount my power strip to the back of this cabinet back there, and then all the wires will kind of be tucked in back there. Again, this is just like a freestanding piece of furniture. It's not getting like scribed to the wall or anything like that. That way when we move or whatever, this will come with us. But pretty stoked about this. Can't wait to get it in the house and set all my stuff up on it. So that's really it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. The Patreon, if you want to join the Patreon, it's a great way to support the channel. Link is below. There's also a link for merch, stuff like that. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you made it this far, thank you. See you guys next week. Peace.